Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta.
And as Guru Bhakti took prominence in the devotee's consciousness, the initial Vrindaban temple was put on hold to focus all resources on building Srila Prabhupada's residence, which at that time was still envisioned as a very modest, simple country retreat. And from a casual drawing sketched on a napkin, a plan began developing of its own accord, more elaborate than initially imagined, as devotees realized practically how Krishna was guiding them and empowering them to serve and honor Srila Prabhupada. At which point the theme of a simple country cottage evolved into a palace suitable for Krishna's ambassador. And the towering dome became the axis around which all community thoughts, talks, and activities revolved, as walkways and parks also developed to award a horizontal dimension. And this is what a palace does. Symbolically, a palace is a place for royalty and is known to have treasures and secrets and wonders beyond the reach of the common man. How appropriate it was that the theme evolved into a palace for Srila Prabhupada. And in 1974, the palace hosted Srila Prabhupada's first visit and commentary. And a main topic, I believe it was the main topic, of Srila Prabhupada's words as he circumambulated the palace, which was just 4 walls. Solid cinder block walls with no windows. And as Srila Prabhupada circumambulated, he stopped at regular intervals and tapped his cane on the walls and said, "Install windows here." Now, our leader wasn't thinking about windows at that time, and he said, "We will have artificial illumination," and Srila Prabhupada rejected. No, artificial. Natural lighting. And then he continued, stopped, tapped his cane, and marked where he wanted windows to be installed. Completing his parikrama at the entrance to the inner chambers, now called the temple room, Srila Prabhupada entered, and he stood in the corner, and Bali Mardan Maharaj, who was visiting for the occasion, articulated something that the palace construction crew had been contemplating amongst themselves. He volunteered on our behalf. This room will be illumined by jewels beset in the columns, just like Krishna's palaces in Dwarka. Many of you may have heard this pastime, but possibly without the context. At which point, Srila Prabhupada's gaze scanned all the devotees present And it was mostly the Brijabasis, the palace construction crew. It's very simple. And with his cane, which he moved in the motion of an arch, encompassing all the devotees beneath it, declared with the utmost humility, which granted us entrance into the vision of an Uttama Adhikari, these devotees are my jewels. That was a very illuminating statement because we had never seen each other like that. We probably never did since. But it is a standard to strive for, and actually transforms your perception of everything to see the devotees as jewels, and how that will facilitate achieving your darshan with Krishna. Srila Prabhupada's pleasure was very obvious as he was leaving. Somadas and Gostavihari were in the driveway, and Srila Prabhupada stopped and rolled down the window, and he asked them, "You're working here?" And Soma said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." Srila Prabhupada said, "Thank you very much," which he often did. He also said something else, which wasn't really obvious what he meant. But in discussing it amongst ourselves, we came to a unanimous conclusion. Srila Prabhupada said to Somadas, there in the driveway outside the palace, in 1974, "Krishna will protect you." What does this have to do with the palace construction? The unanimous consensus of the devotees was that this means that Srila Prabhupada is so pleased by our efforts that we will achieve the special protection from Krishna. Now at that time, probably maybe to some degree still today, New Vrindaban was a little bit different than the rest of ISKCON. And they kind of looked down on us because they took Srila Prabhupada's instructions about distributing books as the ultimate. We took Srila Prabhupada's instructions about protecting cows on par with that. But the ISKCON worldwide could not really appreciate, and I said, what are they doing? We're distributing books. What are they doing there? Milking cows? And then when we started building a palace, what in the world are those Brijabasis doing? Building a palace for Srila Prabhupada? And Srila Prabhupada came to hear of this? And he defended us. He said, all over the world, devotees are building temples. They are building a palace for me. He, meaning our leader, has understood properly. And nobody ever said anything about that again. And he said, as soon as it's finished, I will come and live there. And in 1976, he declared, I am already living there, and I always will be. And in 1977, right until the conclusion of his earthly pastimes, Srila Prabhupada repeatedly expressed how significant the palace was to him and how he desired to gain strength so that he could again visit and live there, which he said would be his greatest pleasure. Now at this time, the palace construction crew was experiencing quite a dichotomy. We were on a marathon, as we always were, because the mantra which sustained the enthusiasm of the devotees was Srila Prabhupada's coming, which he was supposed to do about 20 times and actually did about 4. But it was that enthusiasm, that loving anticipation that empowered and inspired all our efforts. But in 1977, we're getting reports that really seem to indicate that he's on the verge of returning back to Godhead. Not that he ever left, but ascending to Golok. So it created somewhat of a, why are we on this marathon to finish his residence when he's clearly preparing to leave this world? Now, this was part of another dichotomy that Srila Prabhupada was like vacillating between, I won't leave you, and his clear instructions that I'm teaching you how to do what every man must: die. We couldn't really imagine Srila Prabhupada leaving us, but clearly he was demonstrating in his words and deeds how to prepare for the inevitable. And then he said, let us see which palace I will be going to. So the evidence pointed to his imminent departure, and his teaching how to live in this world and prepare to die while glorifying Krishna to our last breath. And the day of his departure, when that powerful news reached around the world that Srila Prabhupada had concluded his final earthly pastime, and the devotees were seized with such a deep sense of grief, and the universe seemed dark and void, and the Shikshastakam prayers of Mahaprabhu really came to life. Sunyaitam jagat sarvam Govinda virahiname. Without Govinda, or in our case without Gurudev, everything, the world, our future, our prospects, all looked dreary, dark, void, and quite hopeless. One thing Srila Prabhupada persistently drummed into our hearts was to turn to his instructions. And we had those instructions. Srila Prabhupada very clearly, in the story of Paranjana, who later became Vaidarbhi and married Malayadwaj, meaning a great devotee, and she served him very faithfully till the end. And as she was massaging his feet and they felt cold, she prepared the funeral pyre, which she was on the verge of entering, when that old Brahmana appeared and said, who is this? Do you remember me? Do you remember that your Swami had an intimate friend, as do you? Like two swans living in the Manasa lake that were still so far from home? And Srila Prabhupada explained in his purports that Vidarbhi, lamenting the departure of her husband, her Swami, is how a devotee should receive the news of Gurudev's departure. And her entering into the funeral pyre signifies that it's better to die with the departure of Gurudev than to fail to follow his instructions and strive to fulfill his mission. The appearance of the old Brahmana means if you're that sincere, the Supersoul will appear to you in a form appropriate because you're not yet able to see the Lord personally, whereas by following Gurudev's instructions, you're tantamount to seeing the Lord face to face. And Vidarbhi was pacified by the words of the old Brahmana because he's Supersoul, of whom Gurudev is the manifestation. This is Vani. This is Vipralamba Seva. This is service and separation, which we had heard over and over is the highest ecstasy, which made no sense whatsoever and can't until you actually have some experience and realization that within the pain of separation is the joy of a deeper communion, which is both the basis of community and the impetus for mission, to go and tell. Not only to tell others about how Srila Prabhupada touched our lives, but to hear from them how he has done the same. So, the wonder we discovered was the unfolding mystery in Srila Prabhupada's teaching, which was merely theoretical to us till this time, that in teaching us how to die, he was teaching beyond that how to live in a relationship beyond the reach of death, in a world where darkness never wins and separation is never the last word. For within the pain of separation awaits and unfolds a dynamic union where Srila Prabhupada's mercy and presence is forever expanding and growing. And this is the essence of Gaudiya Vaishnava teachings and the Brijavasi spirit. And that ever heightening, eager anticipation that sustained and inspired us that Srila Prabhupada is coming and we would see his pleasure or hear his chastisement. It's all the same because it's all loving reciprocation. That sense of eager anticipation that Srila Prabhupada is coming became integrated with the growing conviction that he's already here and he always will be. And this memory contributes to the experience and relationship extended from his samadhi, whether it be his Bhu Samadhi, Deha Samadhi, in Vrindaban, his Pushpa Samadhi, in Mayapur, or his Smriti Samadhi here in New Vrindavan. And you can experience that influence of Supersoul continuing Srila Prabhupada's relationship as when you're reading his books and a verse lifts off the page and is imprinted in your heart, indicating that you've been touched by that Guru Vani. And on that night of Srila Prabhupada's departure, and the devotees congregated in the palace, doing the only thing we knew in times of utter darkness, confusion, uncertainty, to take shelter of the holy name. And in that kirtan, when the devotees were literally holding one another up, when the words of Narottam Das Thakur became so vivid that in separation from the Lord and His associates, all I can want to do is to enter into fire or beat my head against the rocks. How does this compare to Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita that for the soul there is neither beginning nor end, and one who is enlightened laments neither for the living nor the dead? Because these associates of the Lord award our experience of Krishna. And when they depart, that particular experience seems to be gone. So in that kirtan in the palace, in the heart of Kartik, the most joyful month, when Srimati Radharani's blessings abound, and Srila Prabhupada departed this world, singing the invocation prayers, the devotees just literally holding one another up, wanting to go with Srila Prabhupada, unable to imagine how we could go on, until in the depth of the night, in the mellows of the kirtan, we experience a presence which transformed grief to joy and mourning to dancing. And it seemed inappropriate to feel such unbounded, unprecedented joy on the night of Srila Prabhupada's departure from this world. But it was undeniable and spontaneous, so no one could resist it. But naturally, as the sun rose the next morning, and the world was not dark like we thought it would be, but we were sustained by the experience of the night before, and the devotees were conversing amongst themselves, "Did you experience that?" And they all did. What was it? The interpretation was unanimous. Everyone, including those who had spent significant periods of time in Srila Prabhupada's personal presence, they all admitted they never experienced Srila Prabhupada to be so near and dear as that night in the palace. It is characteristic of modern society that significant encounters with others, however inspiring and helpful and illuminating and stimulating and good they may be, leave our lives basically the same unless we offer an invitation which expresses a desire for lasting relationship. Unless we can extend that invitation to Srila Prabhupada to enter our innermost feelings and thoughts, which we usually hide, probably even from ourselves, then we will not experience that Guru Vani, which is, in a sense, synonymous with Gauravani. He left us that most precious example of taking Gurudev's instructions as his life and soul, and against all odds doing the unimaginable, leaving Vrindavan at the age of, 69? Vrijabasis are fearful even to go to Mathura, because death can come at any time. And here Srila Prabhupada is leaving Vrindavan to go to New York. This is the compassion corresponding to the pure love for Krishna, compassion for all the souls bereft of an understanding of Krishna. So, communion is the foundation for community, but it doesn't end there. It leads to mission. Go and tell. Share with others what we have experienced. And listen to them also, how Srila Prabhupada has touched their hearts. And in that way, our spiritual lives will be sustained. So, in summary, Srila Prabhupada's palace is a very unique Smriti Samadhi because he personally visited different times during his life and gave personal instructions how he wanted the construction to proceed. It was intended to be his residence, his country retreat. It became his Smriti Samadhi. And it was all Krishna's wonder that these simple Brijabasis, very few of whom had any experience to do anything more than milk cows, could actually construct a palace of gold. And this indicates the very personal, loving heart of Krishna, how he loves his devotees and wants to see them honored. And when he does, that same Krishna from within our hearts showers his blessings. And this is why samadhis, why the culture and history of samadhis has gained such prominence in Gaudiya Vaishnava culture as an integral component of our Krishna consciousness, developing or continuing relationship with departed Vaishnavas and Acharyas as they continue their service in the spiritual world, maintaining a presence in this world, offering the yoga pith, the overlapping of material and spiritual worlds to facilitate our return back home, back to Godhead. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Yes.
Could you elaborate on this?
Vani means instructions. It was Lord Chaitanya's general instruction. Charideka Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Agaya Guru Hanataradesh. Go tell everyone about Krishna. Bolo Krishna Bhaja Krishna Krishna Kora Siksha Krishna Mata Krishna Pita Krishna Dhanapran. Tell everyone, worship Krishna, serve Krishna, learn to love Krishna. Krishna is our Father, our Mother, the very wealth of our lives. Lord Gauranga gave that instruction to everyone. In the parampara, from the time of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who established the blueprint for a worldwide preaching mission, to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who actually sent devotees to Western lands who were not very successful. It was Mahaprabhu's both instruction and prediction that the holy name spread to every town and village of the world. During Srila Prabhupada's lifetime, other than a very few most of even the most visionary Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas and gurus and sadhus considered that Prithivitayachiyat Nagaradigram Saripat Pachara Habimodanam, the holy name will spread to every town and village, meant every town and village in India. Every town and village of the world. The world is India. And Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers and associates, the holy name can't spread outside India. The world means India. And Srila Prabhupada said, no. So, Gauravani, Lord Gauranga's instructions was to teach everyone about Krishna. His prediction, which was also a form of instruction, that the holy name travel to every town and village of the world. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati gave that instruction, and he inaugurated that mission. He was not pleased with the success. Who took that instruction to heart and nurtured it to fruition? That was our Guru Vani, Srila Prabhupada's instructions, which is also for the world. And back to Vaidarbhi, serving Malayadvaj, the Swami, and the appearance of the mystery Brahmana, who is the old friend of Malayadvaj and Vaidarbhi as well. We're like two swans swimming in the same lake, in the heart, but we're still far from home. In Srila Prabhupada's purport, taking the instructions of Guru as your heart and soul is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Lord face to face. Srila Prabhupada's, and it was also his unprecedented faith in Gauravani, the instructions of Lord Gauranga, which he took to the max. And in so doing, changed the course of world history. And in so doing, actually fulfilled that intense desire and universal prediction that the holy name would spread to every town and village. So in synopsis, Guru Vani, Srila Prabhupada's instructions, is perfectly aligned and integrated with fulfilling Lord Gauranga's instructions. And in that way, they're one. All right? Yes. Well, there's basically three. Deha Samadhi means where the body is placed. It may also be called Bhu Samadhi. But Deha Samadhi is more specific. Bhu Samadhi could be ashes. So it's Deha Samadhi, where the body is placed. Pushpa Samadhi, where the flowers worn by the departed Vaishnava as he left are interned. Smriti Samadhi, where his remembrance is enshrined. Three major categories. Yes.
So, have if smriti samadhi is wherever his remembrance is enshrined, does that mean that any ISKCON temple basically is a smriti samadhi or Srila?
Yes. It can be any ISKCON temple, it can be any paraphernalia, any residence. And Srila Prabhupada wouldn't necessarily have had to be there, anywhere his instructions or remembrance is preserved and conveyed. But that's more informal and generic. A monument erected specifically for that purpose is more specific. And that's why we say, smriti, it's not limited to a building or a book or a piece of paraphernalia. It can be anything or anyone, anywhere that invokes that remembrance. But when you add, samadhi, it infers a structure which houses that remembrance. But yes, any ISKCON temple, any residence that Srila Prabhupada ever used, any residence of any devotee that's dedicated to the remembrance of Srila Prabhupada, in a generic sense, can be considered a smriti samadhi. And they're all special and unique. I just wanted to share some of the unique specialities of Srila Prabhupada's palace, because anyone who goes for darshan of Srila Prabhupada in the palace experiences his presence is so prominent and vivid there. So to share a little of the history and philosophy to give substance to that experience was our offering. Anything else? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.